This video started a few days ago when I made some ricotta and I had a waste product called Whey, which is the liquid part of the cheese which is separated when you heat it up. I was going to give it to Julie for her to use in the garden as fertilizer, but then I read a little bit about it and found out that actually it's got some incredibly good properties and high in protein, calcium, very good for the gut. So, and one of the suggestions is that you can cook pulses with it. So I decided to do a Sicilian recipe using part of the whey and with chickpeas. So what have I done so far? Last night I soaked some dry chickpeas in half water and half whey, cold, everything cold. And I'm going to show you what I've got here. I, by the way, placed everything in the fridge because the whey clearly it's got a degree of acidity because it's a subproduct of ricotta. If you were to soak your chickpeas with water, you don't need to put them in the fridge, but I did. And this is interesting actually because this has never happened to me. So half whey, half water, and you can see hopefully in this camera that I've got a little layer of the white water, which is obviously the color released from the chickpeas, but there is this little layer of almost like a white cloud, which I suspect is partly the whey. Reason why I did that is because I wanted the chickpeas to get rich with that substance, the whey partly. So I washed them thoroughly before obviously I soaked them, and they've been in here now for a good 18 hours. Next I'll go and rinse this and rinse them in fresh water first, and then I'll show you what to do next. But also I will be cooking them with some of the whey, so I'll show you. Of course you do not have to make ricotta and then get the whey to make this recipe. You can just use water or some vegetable stock, but I wanted to try what it's like, so I thought I'll share with you. The first thing to do is to cook my chickpeas. Nice big leaf of bay leaf this is from the garden, and I'll put all of my chickpeas inside. And I've got here my whey, so actually if you look at the bottle, see what is missing from this bottle is what I used 50% to soak my chickpeas last night. And I'll do a similar job now. I'll put some of my whey inside my pan, and then I'll top it up with, this is cold water, it's inside a kettle but it's cold water. And I'll go about a couple of centimeters to an inch above the top of my chickpeas. I'll put this on the hob and I'll bring everything to the boil because it's cold. Ensure that it's always cold when you're cooking chickpeas from scratch. And once it boils, I'll turn it down on to simmer and I'll leave to gently cook for about 25 minutes to half an hour until they're properly cooked. Now, depending on what sort of chickpeas you're using, they might take a little bit less or a little bit longer. You will have to taste them. But also here, you can use obviously canned chickpeas. And if you do, you can skip this step, but do not get rid of the water. I'll show you what I mean in a little while. So I'll put this on the hob and I'll prepare some of the other ingredients in the meantime. And the good thing about this recipe is that you can start some of the cooking process earlier, then you can stop, then you can carry on later. It doesn't really matter. So I'll partly start the next phase and then I'll stop. So I've put some olive oil at the bottom of a saucepan, and here there are 4 medium cloves of garlic, and I'll just give them a gentle crush, and I'm leaving the skin in them. These are from our garden, by the way. These are anchovies, and if you're vegetarian, you do not have to skip this recipe because of the anchovies. You can easily do without if you want, or if you want to have a little bit of a kick like the anchovies might give you, you can replace them with capers. The only challenge that I have when I use anchovies is to get them out of the jar. I'm not sure about you, but I find them a little of a nightmare. There they are. And there are about 3 in there, and I just get another little piece. I want to make approximately 4, so I'll get another one. As I said, a total nightmare. Tomato puree is my next ingredient, but I'll do something before I add it in. So I've got a little glass bowl here, and I'm gonna be adding about a couple of the spoons equivalent, something like this. My chickpeas are cooking, so I'll go and pinch a little bit of the water, and I will add it here. and I'll mix it together, and this will help dissolving my tomato puree, and I can put it inside of my saucepan. You cannot make chickpeas pasta in Sicily and not add rosemary. It's the law. So you must make sure that you've got rosemary. I'm watching you. So actually you can replace rosemary with parsley if you like, in case you cannot find it. But if you do have rosemary, it's much better. However, I will be chopping it in little pieces like this first, so that it makes a little bit less intrusive, and I can add it there also. I'm not adding any salt, by the way, but I will be adding a little pepper. The reason why I'm not adding salt is because of the anchovies. They're very salty, and also the whey did have a little salt when I made the ricotta, so I can always add salt at the end if I want to. And that is the lot for now, but I will not be putting anything on the hob until the chickpeas are cooked, and then I'll show you the second stage, including cooking these balls, so cooking the chickpeas again with some other vegetables. I'll see you in about 15 minutes. So my chickpeas are nearly cooked, and these are plum tomatoes. You can use anything you like. You can use also tin tomatoes, by the way. I would say though that if you've got access to fresh tomatoes, they are a little bit better because they are got more texture. But if you don't, of course, use tin tomatoes. Also, cherry tomatoes will go very well with these. So I've got here 300 grams, by the way, in case you want to know the quantities. And the second vegetables I will be using is going to be some carrots. These are freshly picked from our garden. So I would suggest either one very large carrot or a couple of medium ones. You can see that I've got a selection in here. So I've actually washed them thoroughly, and I'm going to keep the skin, but you can decide to remove it if you want. Entirely up to you. Although if you do leave it, it's very good for you. It's full of fiber. And I'll chop them in little pieces, similar size to my tomatoes. And here are my chickpeas, and they are cooked. I've just tested one and it's perfect. First thing to do though is to remove the bay leaf. You don't want that. And I'll add all of my chopped tomatoes and carrot at once inside the pot whilst the water is hot. You can see that my water level has gone down slightly, so I'm going to top it up a little. This time, as my chickpeas are hot already, I can add hot water. So I'm going to be adding enough to cover the top of my vegetables by about a centimeter, like this. And just like before, I've got some rosemary, and I will not be chopping this, but I will be removing it from the stem and add it in. And this is ready to go back on the hob. Once again, once it reaches the boil, I'll turn it down, and I'll wait until the carrots are cooked, which is going to be the ones taking longer. The tomatoes won't take very long, and of course the chickpeas are already cooked. 10-15 minutes, whatever, how long it takes to cook carrots. I nearly forgot, as I said, I was going to give you a little tip if you were to use the canned chickpeas. So this is when effectively you're starting your recipe, because they're already cooked. But I mentioned something about the water. Lots of people remove the water and then they rinse under the tap. I don't think you need to do that. No, actually, it's not I don't think. Don't do that. Because the water inside the tin is really flavorful. So just pour it in your saucepan and then top it up with cold water, because they will be cold, and keep the water, because actually adds a lot of flavor. It would be a shame to just put it down the sink, because if you think about it, the chickpeas have been living in there and they've been releasing lots of flavor already. So that's my tip. Okay, nearly there. We are on the home stretch now, so everything is cooked. I've got a little tip for you, 2 tips today. That is assuming you like your pasta to be nice and creamy. So I've got a ladle, and I'll pick up a mixture of chickpeas and broth and vegetables, and I'll do a couple of ladles and a little bit more of my broth like this. I'll put this back, and I've got a little blender here, and I'll blend everything together. Although I do like creamy, I don't want to make this too smooth either. So if you look, it's a little bit rough, which is perfect, but you can make it as smooth as you like, almost like baby food, if that's what you want. Personal choices. This is perfect for me. The remainder of my chickpeas and vegetables, I'll strain them, and I'm going to separate the liquid from the solid, but I will keep the liquid because I need it when I cook the pasta. I'll show you what I mean. And I'm now the last stage of this wonderful recipe. So my mixture of ingredients are on the hob, and I'll go along, and the first job is to squeeze I should say, the anchovies so that they totally disappear, and also the garlic, but really mix everything together, and I'll wait about 30 seconds until all of my ingredients combine, followed by my puree of chickpeas and vegetables, and all of my chickpeas and vegetables which are just drained. Everything is really hot already anyway, so it doesn't take long to start boiling, and I will add some of my water that I've drained from the chickpeas. I'll turn the temperature up once again so that it starts boiling, and I'm going to add my pasta now, and these are conchiglie or shells. You can use also macaroni. Ironically, I was going to use macaroni, but then I saw the shells in my cupboard, and I like the fact that the chickpeas will go inside the little hole, so I decided to go for shells, but any short pasta will be fine. And I'll turn this down though, and medium high, number 6 is my position out of 9. If you've got a gas hob, turn it on medium. And I will cook the pasta gently, and you will see that it will start absorbing my wonderful juice here, and eventually it will start drying up, and I'll top it up again. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. The cooking time for the pasta will be very similar if you were to cook it in hot water. So read the packaging of whatever pasta you've bought, and then that will give you an idea. You could also ask me, why didn't you add all of the liquid together at the beginning and then let it cook? That is because personal preferences. I don't want this to be too brothy. Like this I can regulate it, just like now for example. You can see that some of the broth has already been absorbed by my pasta, and I can add some more. Make sure obviously that this stays hot, and then I can continue doing that progressively until the pasta is cooked. If I was to add at the beginning and then it's too brothy, then not good really, not for me anyway, but as I said, personal choices. And look, I did say to you that the chickpeas, they will find the home inside the shells. Can you see? Look here, they are already finding the shells, and they're going inside, a bit like snails. Anyway, I will wait until this is totally cooked now, or almost cooked. There is one more tip I'm going to show you. And here is my last tip, actually last 2 tips as it happens. So the pasta is about a couple of minutes before it's al dente. So I suggest that if you make this dish, turn it off and put a little olive oil on the top, just like this. Then give it a mix with your spoon, and place the lid on, and leave it now for 2 to 3 minutes, and let the heat inside the pasta and the chickpeas to finish cooking the pasta effectively, and that makes a big difference. Here is what I've got leftover stock wise. That is my last tip. So I'm not going to throw this away. I'll put it in the fridge, and the likelihood is that we will have some leftover, and overnight the pasta will absorb more of the juices and so on, and it will grow. And you will find that if you want to reheat it in the morning, you can, in the morning, on lunchtime, whatever, maybe not in the morning for breakfast, who knows. But if you want to reheat it tomorrow, you can add some of this stock to give it a second leaf of life. But if you got no stock left over, just add a little hot water, and enough to give that level of liquidity so that it becomes lovely and creamy again. So I'll see you in 3 minutes. This is another one of those meals which is very economical to make, but very luxurious in taste. Although I'm really keen to see what it tastes like with the whey instead of broth or water. I did say you can use, of course, water, but also you can make some vegetable stock if you like instead of water, but do soak obviously your broad beans, your chickpeas overnight in water first. So here it is. So I've rested for 3 minutes, and I'm ready to see what it's like. It's beautiful. I make this quite often, especially during the depth of the winter, because it's such a warming dish. But the whey actually adds a depth to the whole taste, and I'm actually pleased that I didn't put any more salt, because it did have salt when I made the ricotta, and it's delicious. It's got a bit of a cheesy taste, so I'm not going to add any cheese. Normally I would have added some Parmigiano or Grana or Pecorino. It's just beautiful as it is. Honestly, I'm not just saying, it's one of my best, and it's true. It makes a big difference, and I feel better about it, because I got a feeling of having reused something which would have otherwise gone in the bin. So if you do make ricotta, I will have a video eventually on how I make the ricotta. I'm not sure if we'll go without before this pasta dish or after this pasta dish, as I made some cheese and I'm waiting for the cheese to mature. But if you do make the ricotta, keep the whey. Definitely worthwhile. Make one of those. Arrivederci, buon appetito. Ciao.